also want to talk a little bit about unity, right? I know you're big on education, people showing up for education. I want to talk about that as well. So, if everybody would, I have Miss Cisco, right?
Yes.
In the studio with me. You can talk about it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jermichael, for the opportunity. Thank you so much, Jermichael, for the opportunity to be on your show today. Super excited, as you said. I am Lewis-Sisco. Super excited to be here just to talk about the community and to speak facts.
Yeah, for sure. That's what's up, man. So, known each other for a little while now. Some of the work that we do causes us to interact in the community and things of that nature. I know you do a lot, so for those people out there who may not know some of the things that you do, I would love for you to give us some of your titles and talk a little bit about some of the things that you're a part of and that you do.
Good.
We got time though, so let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I'm a community impact engagement manager, still serving and assisting the Eastern Shore Area Health Education Center. As I transitioned from that, I actually just started a job in July with the Dorchester County Public School System as a career coach, because I have a workforce development background coming from the Department of Labor after working there 7.5 years. I'm super excited to be actually in the trenches with our youth to actually be able to help them to see the opportunities that are ahead of them after graduating high school, even those opportunities that they are able to engage now while they are in school. So super excited about that. I am a mom, I'm a wife, I am a lover of Jesus Christ. And so just, being out in the community to help our community strengthen and uplift them is really what I'm all about.
Yeah, for sure. I've been to a few of the events that you put on. I'll speak about the one we did at the jumping place or the place space. You brought the governor's family down.
The governor's mom.
Yeah, the governor's mom. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that event and some of those type of events that you do in the community for people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I do work for Moving Dorchester Forward, which is an organization that provides resources to the community to let them know what's available to them. So the event that you actually came to, we actually had with a MOU with an organization in Montgomery County called Parent Encouragement Program. And they actually allow us to run their family resiliency program in Cambridge, which is a parenting program to help parents to learn skills and additional resources to better connect with their children. And so the event you attended at Cabin Fever was a celebration for those parents that had completed that program. We actually brought back the parents that completed the first cohort back in the winter and had those parents to marry the new parents. And our governor's mom, who's one of my mentors, Miss Joy Thomas Moore, she's amazing. Her and her daughter came down from Baltimore to be in support of that event. She signed some books, she engaged some parents, she did a small session, and so super excited. And I'm glad that you were able to attend. The mayor from Cambridge was able to attend. We had law enforcement there, and that's what it's really about, breaking down the stigma, the barriers that we can't come together collectively to work together, even though we're not in the same county. You do a lot of work in Dorchester County, so just having you to be a part of those different things to also expand the network so that they not only hear from me, but they hear from other people with their perspectives, that's gonna help strengthen and help build them as individuals.
Right. And you mentioned you work in the Dorchester County area, but you do move around the Eastern Shore as a whole.
Yes.
So you also call the Dorchester County area home.
Yes, absolutely.
so
Born and raised,
yeah.
Groove City, baby.
Yeah, that's what's up, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about that. Being from Groove City over the years, knowing the mecca of music, the mecca of some very powerful movements over the years. And then today, some of the things that are plaguing the community, which are plaguing all of our communities, right? It isn't just a Groove City thing, it's just a Cambridge thing.
Right.
The youth across the shore are having issues and problems. But as a person who's out here, a person who's boots to the ground, when it talks about issues and problems, what are some of the issues and problems that you see in our community that you truly feel like we need to one, as a people, start working on first,
Right.
but then two, start utilizing some of those resources that may be in our community that we just don't utilize
Right.
enough. So we'll start with one. Like, what are some of the things that we can start working on as a community?
That's a good question. I think honestly, when we talk about from a communal standpoint, a lot of times the decision makers are making the decisions about what is going to be beneficial for our community, and a lot of times in that conversation, the communities that the issues directly affect, they're not there, right?
For sure.
So their voice is not at the table. They're not the people that's actually helping to come up with the solutions so that the solutions are effective, right? I believe that we have great people in office, and I think they have good intentions, but when you think about what's gonna be best for those communities, without having the community be a part of creating that solution, you sometimes create solutions that are great ideas, but they're ineffective. And so I think for Dorchester County, of course, like you said, a lot of these things plague every community, right? The violence, the gun violence, the gangs, right? But I also think what's unique and different that's missing is a part of the solutions have to include the people that these issues directly affect.
Yeah, for sure. We've been saying that for years. We've been saying for years, and you know, I actually left some organizations, right? And I left some meetings that happened monthly or quarterly or whatever that looked like, because we meet all the time. And one, we never left with an action plan. That was one of the first issues. And then it's the people at the table that got their lives kind of sort of quote unquote together. And we're reading about people that never have a seat at the table.
Right.
Like we talking about kids that never come in and give us information or their thoughts. We're talking about families and single mothers, and none of the single mothers are at the table with us talking or putting their input. And a lot of times, like you said, we keep spinning our wheels in the same place, and we need motion in a whole other area.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely key. So what, when you say that, right, showing up, having a voice, what does that look like? So people understand, like, what does showing up and having a voice look like?
So I think, again, when we define engagement, when you ask a person, like, what does engagement look like to you? Everyone's gonna have their own definition, right? So I think for me, as an advocate, as a community leader, one of the things I try to be intentional about is understanding what's going on, right? And breaking it down to common language where our community understands, right? Like, a lot of times we want people to show up in those spaces and have a voice, but we're also not understanding to the dynamics of, the economy system that has caused people to have to work 2 and 3 jobs to be able to afford their monthly expenses. So what time are we having meetings, right?
For sure.
Can you have someone to go and speak on your behalf? Can you submit what you gotta say to the local leaders in an email, right? Like that type of thing. But really understanding how these things directly affect you. If you don't know how they affect you, you can't get buy-in from a community that is dealing with these issues, right? Like, what significance or importance does what you all are gonna be talking about, what does it have to do with me? So making sure that they understand, like, this is directly impacting you. And I get passionate about it because a lot of times things are going on and our communities are seeing and reaping the negative effects from it because we do not know. And old proverb is people perish for the lack of knowledge. It's true.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And it's on all aspects, right? Because you could even add that to the school side of things.
Yeah.
They want us to show up, and then like you said, it's the language, it's the lingo. People don't understand.
Correct.
It's the communication barrier. So I know if that communication barrier happens to us, and we speak English, you can only imagine people who don't speak the language, right? So a lot of times they want us to show up, but like you said, you gotta make the language accessible. You gotta make sure that people are understanding what's going on so that they feel comfortable coming, right?
Yeah.
I ain't gonna keep coming to a meeting and I don't understand what you're talking about.
Right.
Like even like the schools, just IEPs, you're involved in education when it comes to certain different things. People don't go to those meetings. A lot of our parents just don't go to those meetings. But like you said, between work and between not understanding, they allow somebody else to make decisions for their children. And then we have the effect that we have now.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about, we spoke about it earlier, because we've been played with it as well in Salisbury. Gun violence without youth. A lot of times people ask, well, how are we gonna solve gun violence? And that's a lot of layers to that question, right? They expect an immediate answer and you're gonna solve gun violence. And I instantly, when I speak of it, I instantly always talk about, how our kids get access to these guns, these weapons, right? Like that's the biggest piece for me.
Yeah.
Right? Like we want to stop something, but we got to figure out how are our kids even getting access to the high-power weapons that they have access to, right? So that's the biggest piece for me. Before you can even dig into depth with the mental health issues and those things, but in your area, a lot of loss, a lot of families affected, a lot of close families affected over time. Just your thoughts on our youth and gun violence and how important it is for positive adults to show up for our kids in these times of needs.
That is definitely a heavy loaded question, and one thing I'll say is that a lot of times people turn a deaf ear, they close their eyes to things that don't directly affect them if it's not their family. But I have a saying that no one's issue is everyone's issue, right? It don't become your issue or your burden until it's someone that you know, someone you're connected to. And so for me, it's definitely an issue, and it's something that I often, am thinking like, what can I do personally, right? To be available, to be present, to provide the support, regardless as to if I know the victim family or not. I think that when it comes down to gun violence, like you said, it's layered. How we deal with it, how we combat it is layered. But I think more importantly is the support. A lot of times incidents happen, you got everybody and their mama that come out to be there for a candlelight visual. But then 2 weeks later, when that mom is still mourning, the brother is still feeling, the absence of their sibling or their loved one, no one's showing up. So it's making sure that as a people, we wrap ourselves around families that have lost their loved ones due to gun violence, but also being mindful that I can't say how you feel because I've not been there. And even if you have been there, you still don't know how that person feels. So I think more importantly, above all things, is being present.
Yeah, for sure. Now, that's the truth. And consistency, right? I encourage people all the time to start groups, right?
Yeah.
Like grassroots groups to me are the best.
Yeah.
Everything that we've ever really created in our communities came from something that was grassroots.
Absolutely.
And then people took that and built upon it to do other programs and other things that we see today. But I always encourage people to do help groups, right?
Yeah.
Like mothers showing up for mothers that have been through that, showing up for each other. There's a lot of groups in our areas, right? I encourage people just to make sure that they're consistent.
Yeah.
Right? Like, when someone is looking forward to something and then they go consistently and then that thing trickles off. And we get that life happens, but if you're gonna save something, that's why earlier we were talking, be impeccable with your word, right?
Yeah.
If that meeting is gonna be every other Wednesday, make sure you have that meeting every other Wednesday because
Exactly.
someone may be looking for that. That may save someone's life, just by showing up, like you said. Recently, you were honored, the Caucus of African American Leaders, the Eastern Shore. It was a dope event, we talked about it a little bit. You said it was your first time in that scale receiving an award.
First time I ever received recognition. Like, it was crazy. That was not anticipated.
Yeah, that's what's up. And earlier I spoke about people who've done tons of work, and at times they don't get that pat on the back. It doesn't stop the work that they do because they know the work is more important than the accolades.
Yeah.
How did that feel? Being one of those people who were honored, especially after like you said, so many years of putting in work. How did that make you feel? What was the experience like? Talk a little bit about the banquet.
Ooh, so first, like, honestly, you know how you get the notification that you've been nominated for something?
Yeah, for sure.
Nominated and being honored is two different things, right? So, of course, I was thrown like, wow, somebody nominated me, didn't know who it was at the time. And then hearing, like, receiving the information, saying, this is a ticket amount, da-da-da-da-da, I'm like, okay, well, I don't talk about a lot of stuff that I do because I don't believe that when you do things from the heart, it's about you being seen by somebody knowing this because I do it from my heart, right? And so, got the information, received the understanding I was gonna be nominated, I get there, boom, come through the door and it's like all these people. I'm like, yo, literally the day before, I'm like, what's the dress code? So she come back with the dress code. I'm like, oh, so you want me to put it on a little bit? You feel what I'm saying? Right. So I get there, it's all these people, and then like just to see like the outpouring of recognition. You go from being nominated to like an honoree. It was like, whoa. Right, like because I've never had that. Then the city to show up with a citation, the Maryland General Assembly citation, then a plaque from African American Caucus leaders. I was just like, breathtaking, and left me speechless, if I can be completely honest. And so I'm grateful that they were able to allow me to have a guest to come, and my sister and my husband was there. But if I'd have known it was going to be that major, boy, I would have did, definitely. Did some things differently, but I'm so grateful. Afterwards, I had many people was like, why you didn't tell us? Why you didn't tell us? Like most of the things that I do, I don't say too much. I just show up, I do what I do, and that's what it is. You know what I mean?
Sure, very humble. It's a humbling moment.
Yeah.
But you know, like you said, sometimes when you already out here, you boots on the ground, you consistently doing this. Like sometimes it's just like, all right, cool. I mean, they award me with something, I'm honored, but at the same time, I'm still gonna consistently do this work. So it was an honor to see you get an award. You know what I mean? Like I said, especially as you saying, you know, your first time being awarded. So this gonna segue me into my next thing. You know, us coming together, honoring all of those leaders across the Eastern Shore. What's your thoughts on unity, right? Like unity, not only in just Dorchester County, right? Because you know we've had that conversation with me starting to work in Dorchester County. You know, and telling you some of the issues that we've had in Salisbury. But as a whole, right? As a community who know we have issues, as a community who know some of the things that we face, as a community knowing some of the outside things that we face attacking our community. How do you feel the African American community unifies? How do you feel unity is amongst us?
Well, I think honestly, it's one of the main things that's gonna literally change the landscape of what our communities look like, right? And I say that because typically what happens in our community, African American community, we struggle so bad with the spirit of pride, right? Like, oh, I'm strong, I don't need nobody, I got it. But the truth of the matter is that no matter how well together put we may seem, we need one another, right? And like you said, for me, it's not just in my city or in my county, because the truth of the matter is in most cases, individuals are moving from one county to the other.
For sure.
So when I heard, even when I heard you were running for mayor, I'm like, look, Jermichael, let me know what I can do.
Yeah, sure.
Come knock some doors, come do whatever, because at the end of the day, what it's really gonna boil down to is, especially on the Eastern Shore, with us being a subsidiary area, we have to come together as a shore and stand shore united, so that the community knows we're not seeing individuals move from Salisbury to Cambridge, from Cambridge to Denton, from Denton to Berlin, right? And it's like they're taking issues from each county, right? Not us coming together in unity to talk about what they did wrong in these other counties, but us coming together under unity to say, listen, this family is really struggling. Okay, we know what we've seen them struggle through in Wacomico County. Now we understand that they've transitioned to Dorchester. Can we wrap around this family to provide supportive resources so that they don't move again? Or when they do move, they're moving to be stable and understanding that I can be better than what I was in Wacomico County. I can be better than what I was in Dorchester County. So collaboration and unity is key. And I'm talking about the positive things, right? I don't want to hear about what this family did and how they terrorized this and that over in Salisbury when they moved to Dorchester, because I'm not for that. Like, I believe everybody deserves that next chance, right? Not a second chance, because we needed more than two, if the truth really be told.
No, for sure, for sure. Being a woman leader, I would say, for young women out there who want to get actively involved, for people who are just on that brink, right? They don't know what steps to do, or they just need that extra push, right? Like, my first question would be a two-part question. My first question would be, like, what motivated you to get active in your community, right? Like, what pushed you over the edge, or what made you, or was that just something you were brought up with anyway, right? Like, or what was it that made you say, you know what, I gotta step up, I gotta do more, and I gotta be that voice for some people that are voiceless.
Absolutely. So this is also two very layered in response, but I think the short answer is understanding for my oldest son how behind he was academically, right? Getting the test score sent home, but not knowing how to interpret what they meant, and actually asking the question, right? Removing my pride to make it seem like I know what I'm reading, or I know what it means, I know the interpretation of it, but actually saying, what does this mean? Like, in theory, what does this mean? And then from there, it was like, look, I got a standard for my own, but is somebody else struggling with the same thing that I'm struggling with? And then how can I help them? So for years, I would show up at the school board meetings, and I would become the advocate, not just for my child, but for other parents. Parents, what you need me to say? What you need to understand, not just for the parents, but for the teachers. The teachers, sometimes you get a job, you fear that, oh, if I speak out, I'm gonna lose my job, right? So what can I say on your behalf without attaching a name to it? And so that's really how I got started. Like, I wasn't having it. Like, I wasn't gonna be in a position which I wasn't knowledgeable enough to be the advocate for my own and to be the advocate for other parents that truly want the better for their kids, but they don't know how to get engaged, they don't know how to get involved.
Yeah, that's and it's dope that you say that, because a lot of times I tell people, you gotta learn how to self-advocate.
Yeah.
You cannot be afraid to, first off, you cannot be afraid to not know.
Right.
Like, that's the first piece, right? Put your pride to the side, put your ego to the side. If I don't know something, I don't know. And I need to find out, and I need to ask, especially when it's about our children.
Yeah.
And the other piece is like standing up,
Yeah.
showing up. It's very vitally important. The more you show up, the more they're gonna take you serious, the more they're gonna know you truly an advocate for your children or your family and other families, the more you show up. Second part of that question would be, being a leader, man, myself, knowing the things that it weighs on you, knowing that you got a family and all the issues that, you deal with personally. What motivates you to continue, right? Like on those days that it gets hard, on those days that people just seem two-faced and they just seem not to be supporting you, or what makes you get up every day and say, you know what, I still gotta make sure that I continue. What makes you motivated to continue with it?
Yeah, so two parts of that. The integrity one, right? Anything I start, I wanna see through, period. Then the other part of it is that I remember when I was that broken mom. I was that broken person that didn't know, that really wanted to say something, but in all actuality was afraid, like, how this gonna sound? I hated my voice. So when God was like, Shay speaks, I'm like, man, Shay ain't speaking nothing, cause I don't even like how I sound, right? So for me, it's the awareness, the understanding that there's somebody else that literally wants to say something, but because they may struggle with their grammar, they may struggle with literacy, they may struggle with how I look or what I say. I mean, I was on the news a couple of different times, and I was looking at what I was looking like, and I'm like, God, I look a mess. And it was like, God was like, it's not what you look like, it's the voice that's gonna make the difference. Stop worrying about what you look like out here, and just get out here and be who I called you to be. And from that, it's like, yo, like, this is who I am. Like it, love it or not, I'm still gonna be me. I'm still gonna show up. And you're right, it becomes a dog-eat-dog world. It hurts, because some of the people that close to you, you feel like, oh, we gonna get to the finish line. We gonna do this together. We gonna rock out. They'll be the very ones that when they see you in the grunt of, in your weakness, where they can be strong for you, that they back up. They tuck tail and they run.
For sure.
But the integrity says, regardless of how weak I am, I'm gonna keep going.
For sure. I like that, and I like the fact that like you said, it's a lot of times you deal with those things when you question yourself. It ain't even other people saying it. It's you saying it to yourself, right? Like you trying to get over yourself at times, and you in your own way, right? From your own greatness at times. So you definitely got to find those ways to keep yourself motivated. You got to find those ways to keep speaking to yourself, speaking over your life, and understanding that you got to be an advocate and show up for yourself and those people that you love. I would also say, I've seen you run for different things before. Talk about that experience. Like you said, I'm running for mayor now. But I've seen you run previously in some spaces. Talk a little bit about what you ran for.
Yeah.
Would you ever run again? Two-part question. And just your experience with that situation.
You know what, Jermichael, this has come up in the last week.
For sure.
This political idea of me running again. So the office that I ran for was county council in Dorchester County. And, the thing that really caused me to run was, again, showing up in spaces and I'm speaking, but I don't feel like I'm being heard. And in my prayer time, God was like, if you really want to be the change you desire to see, run for office. And at that time, I'm like, yeah, I don't know nothing about this. I don't got no credentials. So I actually reached out to the two candidates that were running at the time. Like, look, I just want to help you on your campaign. So it was my strategic way of really understanding what this process looks like. Needless to say, neither one of them responded. Right. So now I'm stuck with, now I really got to run, right? Again, in my ignorance, not knowing, you don't need a degree to run for office. You don't need, it really becomes intimidating when you see it,
Right.
but then when you really get the experience of understanding that you don't need all of the stuff that people make it seem like you need in order to do it. You really just need a heart and a passion. You need to be visible for your community. And I'm gonna be honest, like we can get into like literally like understanding that politics and advocacy, they're two different things, right?
Sure.
When you are an elected official, there are some things that you have to speak out against or you gotta speak to that may not be your values, right? But you are elected to serve the people. And so would I ever run again in a future life? Because the other office that I was actually meeting to prepare to run for was the school board. Right? It was me and 3 other women at the time. This last time we were meeting with the current mayor. He was a city commissioner before he became the mayor in Cambridge. And I gotta tell you, you know, for me, one thing about Mr. Rideout, many people have their own feelings about him as an individual, but one thing I will say is that after his term as a city commissioner, he never stopped showing up for the community, right? So he was one that was very instrumental in helping me to understand the political process. When I ran for county council, I literally was telling people I'm running not to win, because I didn't know anything about really what it meant to serve on the county council versus the city council and what that looked like. So doing all of that, I learned a lot from the experience of running for county council. So I'm like, you know, the other portion that I'm really passionate about is education. So let me get on the school board to see if I can help out in that vein. But I decided to, I actually had a friend reach out and say, Shay, For All Seasons is looking for a board member. I think it would be awesome because you are all into mental health and this is what you're about and your advocacy, you would be awesome. So I started serving on For All Seasons board, and I stepped back and said, no, I'm not gonna run for school board, because you also gotta recognize your capacity, right? So there was no way I can serve on the board and run for school board. And then also too, being a mom, being young, I still wanna work full time. As a school board elected official, I wanna show up. I wanna be literally the visible representation for my district, not just on paper, oh, you this or you that. I wanna be visible. And that's what happened with the county council seat, like reaching out to those 2 individuals that were running for office, not receiving no response. A politician or someone that's elected to serve a people, they have to be visible. They have to be accessible. And seeing that that wasn't happening, it was like, oh, okay, well, the one thing I do know, I might not know nothing about what it looks like to be in that position, but I know I'm gonna be accessible, and I know I'm gonna be available. And so, that's the long response
No, for sure.
in a short period of time.
Nah, for sure, definitely understand. Well, I applaud you. One, we've talked about it for years, but I never did it until now as far as running for public office.
And I'm proud of you.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. But I think we gotta show up. Like you said, we have the things that plague our communities. We have the issues with our families and our youth. But then we don't show up. We don't wanna be in these spaces that make us uncomfortable. We don't wanna be in these spaces that we are unfamiliar.
Yeah.
And sometimes causes fear in people. And I feel like those are the times we should be thriving. These are the times that we should be running towards these opportunities. Board of Education, County Council, City Council, different boards across your community, getting involved and applying for those boards. It's vital because again, we have to have a seat at some of these tables. I know it's often we say, well, create your own table and bring people to the table. That's good, but when our kids are actively involved in other things, when our family is involved in other things, sometimes you can't create that table.
Correct.
Sometimes you gotta get a seat to the table, you gotta know what you're talking about, and when you get to that table, you gotta be willing to learn, right? That's the big piece, right? Like, we don't know it all.
That's
So
the
you
truth.
gotta be willing to always be a student.
Right.
No matter how much you teach people, no matter how much you know, coaches and all these other things, you still gotta be a student to whatever game you play.
Right.
And that's very vital and important. I know, you do different things again, as we talked about earlier. Do you have anything, that's coming up that people may wanna be actively involved with, or that you wanna, talk a little bit about?
Well, you know, a lot of the things that I'm currently doing is really Dorchester specific.
Right.
But for anybody that's listening and have family in Dorchester that is connected to Dorchester County, the Parent and Family Resiliency Program is one of those programs that is very, it's very resourceful. It's a lot of tools, and I'll tell you, even in a 2-parent household, having 4 children, the program and the content within the program is helping me to strengthen my relationship with my children, right? And the way I respond to them, because the reality is we gonna speak facts. A lot of us is doing things out of what we seen the people that were before us do, our parents do. Not that they did a bad job, but at the same time, the way we parent today is definitely gotta be different because these kids are very different, right? And I'm not saying I'm my children's best friend, but they recognize, like, I want them to be able to come to me and me be their safe space. So definitely the Family Resiliency Program. Then Dorchester County does a lot of things around the poverty reduction. And we don't like to talk about it, right? But the truth of the matter is that all of us is in some level of poverty.
For sure.
Right? When you say debt, you got a car payment, you got a mortgage, right? We need to be educated on how to do better with our finances. So we have a financial wellness program that I am coordinating, and I am also going to be facilitating again. And just wanting to be a part of, again, for any county, anybody listening, wherever you are, show up to your school board meeting, show up to your county council meetings. Even if you can't show up, go back and view the live stream, because you just never know what's being discussed there that may have a direct impact on you.
Yeah, you gotta stand for it.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, cool you can't show up, cool you work, but there's avenues now, especially after COVID,
Yeah.
that you can be informed. They record so many things and put them on YouTube and other places for you to go back and watch them. So our time winding down a little bit. Amazing interview thus far today. People out there who, again, may want to get in contact with you. They heard something today that could help someone in their family, or just want to get in contact with you to speak with you. How do people out there get in contact?
Absolutely. You can reach me at, my email is shayspeaks1, SHAYSPEAKS, the number 1, at gmail.com. And then my work phone is 443-440-5370. Again, Jermichael, thank you so much. Thank you for all that you're doing, trailblazing. You're running for office, but you didn't just start working here in Salisbury, right? So I just respect your grind, I respect what you're doing, and I pray much success and blessings to you. I've heard some things that have been going on as it pertains to your campaign, but you know what I mean? When they go low, you go higher, and you keep on pressing in. Win, lose, or draw, don't let this, of course, it's not gonna be the end for you, because you're gonna keep showing up. And I think that that's what we need our community to understand. If you're not registered to vote, get registered to vote. Make your vote be your voice on the election day, because even though, like you said, you can't be present, be aware and have representation that's going to speak to really not just what they want, but what's best for the community at large. So congratulations in advance, and keep on keeping on.
It means a lot, man. It means a lot to me, especially for someone such as you. And those other people out here that show the love and the support, man. Like I said, quietly kept, they don't know the things that we go through when we put ourselves out there like this.
Yeah.
It's a lot to it, man. So, we've got a few more minutes. Anybody out there, I know you brought your daughter today, anybody else out there that you want to give a big up to or shout out to before we wrap it up and close the show?
Well, of course, I want to shout out all of Blue City, right?
Sure.
Definitely. My husband, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be able to be out in the streets doing what I do. He's definitely standing 10 toes down, front of me, behind me, beside both sides of me. Definitely to my spiritual leaders. This is Sunday, typically I'm in church. But, and again, if it's for the community, it's about building the community, I want to do it. So definitely shout out to them, and all of my 4 kids. So, and shout out to you, Jermichael, for real, for creating space and opening up your platform, letting people come to hear what's really going on, because a lot of times, again, we see things happening, we don't really get involved until after it has negatively affected us. So shout out to you.
That's what's up. Thank you, man. Thank you so much. So, anybody that want to get up, make sure you pay attention. Make sure you wrote down that information. Cisco, thank you for coming on with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what's up.